Hello, everybody. It's the Deephaven community team here for Cinco de Mayo, and we're going to show you some rangeJoin features. So let's get started. All right. So today we've got Ryan to show us these features. So take it away, Ryan.
All right, thanks, Mike. So today I'm demoing a new table operation that we've added. At this stage, all we have is support for static input, which is not really Deephaven-like, but you have to sometimes have to walk before you can run, and only the group aggregation. So range join is a new kind of multiple join that two tables still, right? But it's joining based on multiple left-hand side columns and one right-hand side column. So it's basically allowing you to select the range of responsive rows from within a bucket, and then express aggregations over that range of responsive rows. So let's, without further ado, let's kind of show what I mean. So I'm gonna just make a really kind of simple input table here, right? Some timestamps, and I've actually, if you notice, I've merged them together so that I have two of each timestamp just to make the data a little tiny bit more interesting. Now I'm going to, now that I've got a little bit generated, I'm going to take a snapshot of it to make it static, since that's our limitation right now. And let's kind of go with a very basic version first. We're just going to update that to add before and after time. So now if you look, right, we have a sort of a time that represents like this row's creation. And then we've got a time that's 250 milliseconds in the past and 250 milliseconds in the future to define the responsive range for this row. So our first range join, we're gonna bucket on this column B that we added, which is just derived from the row position. And then we're going to do a basic before is less than timestamp, less than after. So we're basically doing a self join, you understand, right? Or almost a self join, right? Because the left hand is just derived from the right hand in this case, right? And we're going to aggregate to get the row positions or of the input and the timestamps, right? So we're going to just do that first range join. So now here we have the range join, and so you see, look, we've got some vectors here. Pretty hard to read because there's a lot of data in those vectors, so we're just going to kind of move over past that now. Now we're going to actually do some aggregations on that just to see a little more data from it, right? Not real aggregations, these are actually vector aggregations, so vector functions. And I'm just going to drop the vector columns down so you don't have to look at them anymore because they're kind of making it really hard to read the GUI here, right? So let's just slide that over so you can see a little more about what's happening. So you've got here a before and an after, and you've got the first responsive timestamp and the last responsive timestamp. So that first range join was doing a less than on each side of the relationship, right? And so all of the values here, so the first timestamp had better be after the before, and the last timestamp had better be before the after, right? Excuse the child who keeps running in behind me. I live in a zoo, apparently. So you notice initially, right, our before values are all before all the rows that we have, right? So we actually have to scroll up a little bit to find the first case where there's it's something interesting, right? So here you see we've arrived at a before of, sorry, 160, and that maps to a timestamp of 16070, which was actually here one of the earlier rows of the data, right? So you notice that these two weren't responsive because 16060 is not less than 16060, right? And then the last one's going to see here that in general everything is responsive because the afters are after the current rows, right? So we're defining a range here from 0 to 49 to 0 to 51 and so on and so forth. And then so you see because of the pattern in this data, it gradually fills up and then it gradually shrinks back down again, right? I can do an equal or less than or equal join on both sides, right? So that gets, an extra pair of rows in on each side, right? So now you see that in the after side, right, the last responsive timestamp is 16310, which is equal to the after, right? And you'll notice now that the pivot is a couple rows earlier, right, where see the first responsive timestamp comes into play. Sorry. The before here was 15.810, so that obviously the first data is responsive immediately, but then it starts to get interesting around here, right? So where the before is 16070, and that cuts off these first two, but they're equal, so you get this equality relationship there. And then the other one we can do, which is a little bit probably not exciting in this data, right, is the allow preceding and allow following relationship, right? So you have to combine it with the less than or equal, so the inclusive matching. Um, but basically, it says, look, if I have inclusive matching specified, and I didn't find an equal value, well, let's just so we can kind of get an idea of what was happening before or after our window. We have an arrow operator that lets you pull in just one value from before the window or one value from after the window. Now, and by the way, every combination of these operators is valid, right? So you can have less than on the start relationship combined with less than or equal, allow following on the end relationship, and so on and so forth, right? But um, there's, those 9 different combinations of relationships here, right? So let's just do this one now. So you'll see, I think actually in this case, because there's always an equal match, it's not interesting. But so now let's change up our input to have no equal matches. We'll rerun that guy. So now you'll notice that the things are not properly aligned in the befores and afters anymore, right? We could rerun this, and we should see now. So the time sense is going to have a little bit of a look ahead or a look behind, right? So here, so you notice the after is 16,309. So we should have only things before or equal to that, right, in our responsive range. But because there's no equal value in any of these left-hand side, any of these timestamps on the right-hand side, we're actually going to match one value right after, right? So that's where we're pulling in the 16,310 from, or the 16,320, which again, these are all 1 millisecond after the after timestamp. And you can see the before kick in around here. So here you see we've got our before is 16,061, and that allowed us to pull in 16,060, right? That is pretty much all I have to show you guys today. You can use this for all kinds of things like, hey, I've got a bunch of trays. I'd like to join on all the quotes that were valid in that window or before or after that window. Or, maybe I've got a quote. I want to see all the trays that happened in the 10 seconds before and 10 seconds after. Kind of anything like that. Obviously it lends itself to a lot of timestamp oriented ranges, but it's defined for, just like as of join, for any comparable or sortable data types. And that is all I had to add today.
All right, very cool. I hope we can use that as a window to the moon. All right, cheers, everybody. See you next week.